Good evening, everyone. It is September 20th, 2023, and we have just finished with our FOMC session. And honestly, the FOMC event, not really that big of a deal, to be quite honest, this time around. No change to interest rates, and the price action not really changing or surprising us in any sort of way. Been looking for continued selling over the past, I don't know, few days or whatever, or maybe even longer looking at this chart. And what we had today were gap up fails. We got our gap up, but failed to really get any sort of continuation. Uh, then Q did a really good job selling off to its overnight low first, somewhere around here, and then got some bids back up prior to the event. And then after the event, we managed to sell below where we had done that accumulation yesterday at the lows on both the ES and NQ, or SPY and triple Q. And then we end up selling below yesterday's lows. So a pretty decent session for the bears. I'd write this as okay as well. Okay sell. Nothing amazing, nothing terrible. Uh, the volume on this selling, nice to see that it's increasing with every red session. This just showing up as red. Someone pointing this out to me because the close is below the prior day close to it. So it counts as a red session on here on the volume bars. And it is nice to see that volume is picking up as we are selling. Same thing on the NASDAQ. Pretty mild here, but we are getting the same thing. Volume picking up as we're selling. And so usually what I like to see after this sort of liquidative session is, are we getting any sort of continuation of the downside signaling weakness, or instead are we kind of floating above the prior day's low during this Globex session? And if we pull up a chart of the full sessions here, just hiding any sort of indicators or anything, so far you can see that here is the 4 p.m. close here, and we are trading well below that. We have fallen, what is that, off of the 4 p.m. low here. We have fallen 57 points on the NASDAQ, and the ES has fallen similarly a decent amount here, 10 points. And given that we would expect the overnight to have somewhere around a 20-point range, that's usually standard for it, that gives us a low of somewhere around either 44.25, or if we get some upward progress, around 55 or so. So staying well under those settlement lows here around 44.65, and settlement lows on the NQ around 250. Instead, we're just melting down. So for tomorrow, we are likely opening below settlement lows, so below this Tuesday low on both the SPY and QQQ. We're going to be opening below the -3 standard deviation of last week's VWAP, so we are in this price expansion sort of part to the accumulation markup distribution phase. It's sort of a waterfall phase currently, right? Accumulation, markup, distribution, waterfall back down. So we'll be below that standard deviation. We'll be opening well below today's open. We'll be opening below the settlement lows. So in my opinion, and on top of that, getting this selling instead of a drift upwards above the low, we're getting this selling, this downtrend occurring. So in my opinion, I would be looking for today's low of the day to get during tomorrow's RTH. I would look for today's low of the day to break, the initial balance low, the opening range low, the overnight low. I'll be looking for all these sort of auctions to fail to the downside. I'll be looking them to break to the downside, and I don't think we'll be getting any sort of humongous sort of day. But I will be back. I do still believe we'll be breaking this weekly low here at 358-ish on the QQQs, and this sort of double bottom happened that double bottom that happened around 435-ish on the SPY. So overall, I think we'll make our way downwards, probably get into this gray box somewhere around here by Friday. So that's what I have for you guys. In terms of trades, I'm mostly interested in this area here. kind of settlement lows where we accumulated and then sold off nicely. This is a 5-minute chart, so we had spent some time here during the sell-off. So I imagine this is sort of a lid on the day, if not lower. If we do gap down, I would not be surprised if today's low or close or whatever ends up being a resistance area, ends up being what tomorrow's RTH high of the day. Below there, perhaps some bids around this 360-ish number. I believe it was this week's 95% value area low or something like that, around this 360.65. Not really interested in buying this thing further down than that. I probably won't be interested in buying it at all. Where is my chart of the Qs? Was I talking about the Qs? Apparently, it was. Still a little lost with these new numbers and everything. ES, same idea. This is where we accumulated. Here's settlement lows. I imagine we get some selling here, if not around today's close and low. Below there, 435 and 33. This is this week's this August 25th week's 95% value area low. I wouldn't be surprised if we run this stop here at 435 or these stops around 434 and 3/4 and then move our way up. So I wouldn't be surprised if you end up with something like a trading range like this, something like, I don't know, perhaps something like that. $4 and okay, a 1% move. That is roughly equivalent to how much is a 1% move on this thing? Where's the ES? That's a pretty big range. Yeah, I wouldn't expect a bigger range than that. So still a little lost with these new numbers, but hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. I'm looking for a red session, given today's Globex, given this overall idea that this was a thrust, getting our high volume sell, mediocre covers, and further selling on ramping volumes. News-wise, unemployment and existing homes, that should be enough to keep the market nice and peppy tomorrow. Hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. Have a great night. Trade safe, and in my opinion, don't trade the long side.